28 million. I mean, that is just a massive, massive number. It's the brand new, record-breaking milestone that Australia's population has officially just smashed right through. But, behind that giant flashy figure lies a pretty fascinating story. Who actually makes up that number? Where are they all coming from? And maybe most importantly, where are they actually choosing to live?
Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking some brand new demographic data that just dropped from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, or the ABS. We've got some really fresh insights directly from Bjorn Jarvis. He's the head of demography over there, and we're going to use them to visualize exactly how this nation is transforming literally right before our eyes. So if you're the kind of person who loves understanding the big picture through really clear, structured data, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the 28 million milestone itself. Then we'll ask, what drives the growth? Map out exactly where everyone is going. Dig into that classic Melbourne versus Sydney rivalry. And finally, wrap the whole thing up by looking to the future. Let's dive in. Section 1. The 28 million milestone. So the ABS actually maintains this really cool thing they call a population clock. Basically, it's a tool based on high-quality demographic assumptions that estimates the population at any exact second. It's constantly calculating births, deaths, and net migration. What that means in reality is that Australia currently sees a net gain of one person roughly every 50 seconds. I mean, that is faster than you can even brew a cup of coffee. And this clock has a really remarkable regularity to it. If we think back to 2013, the population hit 23 million. Fast forward to 2022, we crossed 26 million. Then just a couple of years ago in 2024, it ticked over to 27 million, which leads us right up to today's 28 million. The ABS does note that this growth is currently tracking somewhere between their medium and high projection scenarios, but the really big takeaway here is that we typically see this clock tick over a brand new million every 2 to 3 years, literally like clockwork.
Now, underpinning this steady march of millions is an engine running at a remarkably consistent speed. We're talking about a population growth rate of just under 1.6%. And yeah, I know 1.6% might sound kind of small, like a really modest interest rate on a savings account or something. But when you apply that compounding interest to tens of millions of people, it translates to adding a city roughly the size of Canberra every few years. According to the ABS, this isn't some wild, unexpected spike either. It's tracking incredibly steadily with the general growth rate we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years. It's just this persistent, steady compounding of the national headcount.
Moving right along to Section 2, what exactly drives the growth? We know the top-line number is going up, but how exactly are we adding all these people? Is it a giant baby boom, a huge wave of migration? Well, the data actually reveals a very clear split here. About 3/4, so 75% of Australia's population growth comes directly from net overseas migration. Now, it is absolutely crucial to be precise here. Net overseas migration means the difference between people coming into the population minus the people going out. You can kind of think of it like a really bustling international airport terminal. There is always a sizable flow of Australians who are choosing to move across borders, expats returning home, and international students arriving or departing. This 75% figure is just the final tally after balancing out all of those arrivals and departures.
So what about the rest? Well, that remaining 25% slice of the pie is what demographers call natural increase. And natural increase is literally just the mathematical difference between the number of babies born and the number of people who pass away. So when you put the whole picture together, migration is doing the heavy lifting for 3/4 of the growth, while births outpacing deaths gently pushes that final quarter along.
All right, Section 3. Where is everyone going?
Knowing that we have 28 million people is one thing, right? But the geography is where this data gets truly fascinating, because national growth is definitely not distributed evenly. While most states are growing at a pace pretty similar to the national average, we have some major outliers. Western Australia is the absolute runaway winner for speed here. They currently hold the title of the fastest growing state at just over 2% per year. It's got this immense economic gravity right now, driven heavily by mining, resources, and robust job opportunities that are just pulling workers out west. Now contrast that with the complete other end of the spectrum. South Australia and Tasmania are currently the slowest growing states in the country, mostly owing to different economic structures and generally older demographic profiles. Furthermore, the concentration of exactly where people settle is heavily skewed. A massive 70%, that is over 2/3 of the entire Australian population, lives across just the 8 capital cities. The remaining 30% are spread out across all of regional Australia.
We are an incredibly urbanized nation, and these capital cities are the undisputed heavyweights of our population footprint.
And you know what? This trend is actively compounding. Not only do the capital cities hold the vast majority of the population right now, but they also act as these incredibly powerful magnets, absorbing over 3/4 or 75% of all new population growth. The ABS notes that while regional Australia is still seeing decent growth, the sheer pull of those urban centers is basically undeniable. It creates this huge snowball effect, right? Jobs attract people, people attract new services and infrastructure, and then all those new services end up attracting even more people moving to or within Australia. It's a massive cycle.
Which brings us to Section 4, the Melbourne versus Sydney rivalry.
Okay, when you talk about capital cities absorbing growth, you inevitably have to look at the two absolute biggest players on the board. The rivalry between them is practically a national sport at this point. It usually boils down to, Melbourne's landway coffee culture versus Sydney's iconic harbour beaches. But from a purely demographic standpoint, people always want to know, who is bigger and when is the leadership going to change hands? Well, the ABS actually has some distinct answers for us here. Under all of their current projection scenarios, Melbourne is expected to outpace and ultimately outgrow Sydney to take the crown. A lot of this actually just comes down to geography. Melbourne has sprawling, flatter surrounding land that really allows for outward suburban expansion, whereas Sydney is a lot more geographically constrained by mountains and the ocean. But here's the catch. While the destination is pretty much certain, the exact timeline is where the uncertainty lies. The ABS demographers state this shift could happen quite soon, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, or it might take a bit longer, stretching out to something like 15 to 20 years.
Finally, Section 5, looking to the future.
So, how will we know for sure when that crown actually changes hands? Well, to resolve the uncertainties in all these projections and really prepare for the next big demographic shifts, we need a reality check. And Beyond Jarvis at the ABS points out that the ultimate reality check is the national census. As he explains, it provides this incredibly comprehensive snapshot of exactly how many of us there are, who we are, and where we've moved. I mean, the census is a massive, massive logistical exercise, essentially capturing the DNA of the whole country on a single night. Because such a high proportion of the population moves from one year to the next, getting 28 million people to actually jump online or fill out those paper forms is absolutely crucial. The ABS then takes all of that objective, incredibly rich data and uses it to adjust their projections, finally giving us a much clearer timeline on exactly when Melbourne might overtake Sydney, and quite frankly, where every other community stands as well.
Looking down the road, this population clock is certainly not stopping. The ABS expects it to tick over to 29 million in just the next 2 to 3 years. And then comes the truly massive milestone, hitting 30 million in about 5 to 6 years from right now. Now, as Bjorn Jarvis impartially notes, there will be a whole bunch of people who are super excited to see all those zeros on the clock, and probably a whole bunch of people who might find that number genuinely alarming. But demography itself, it doesn't take sides. The data remains a completely neutral, objective reflection of the nation's steady growth and its constantly changing face.
So, we've gone from the massive macro 28 million milestone all the way down to local city rivalries today. But I really want to leave you with this provocative thought. When the next census data drops, what is it going to reveal about the growth and transformation of your own local community? Because as those millions keep adding up, they aren't just abstract numbers on a screen. They are literally your new neighbors, new infrastructure projects, and entirely shifting economic dynamics, all happening right in your own backyard. Keep a close eye out for that data. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.